Hola! This time we go to Mexico with a new band called Phantom. And this is indeed probably the newest fandom of them all, according to Metal Archives. Before we get into the details, let's just take a quick look on this album, which mentally takes us back to 80s. Not just the cover, but look at this Skeletor wannabe. Not just mentally and figuratively, but in other ways, this is almost like taking the time machine, including bad photos such as this, and then music to go hand in hand. Blackie Lawless sends his records, I guess. I mean, if you knew about the band in the first place. These badass looking people are like, hey, we don't have internet here in Mexico, at least in when we founded the band, because if we did, the band name would be something else. And we'll get into that in a bit. But as you can see, this one is old school, released in so many ways, even including a kind of a thank you list and a little steel that is a speed metal logo right here, or symbol for that matter. And this one is exactly that, tapping into the world of thrash and speed metal. I would say more thrash than speed, but whatever. Here, who I am to tell you what these guys want to be or sound like. But that's the album in question. Let's talk about it in a bit. First, Metal Archives. So, you wanted to hear about something about fandom and you didn't know what country it's coming from. You're like, oh, is it Belgium? Must be the Brazilian one. No. This is not melodic death metal. So let's get Bulgaria, Canada, maybe. That's heavy metal. Oh, this was more thrash. So let's skip the death metal from Chile. And the list goes on. You could mistake this for black thrash from Costa Rica. After all, there is a thrash metal and a little bit of black metal thing going on, but you can skip the Danish and the German ones. They're not this kind of stuff. My point here is there's a lot of bands called fandom already when this one was founded. So let's head for this trash speed metal thing from Mexico. Guys could have been thinking about it by 2021. Or after that, before they made their first release, they could have been checking out if the name Phantom could be used. Just saying. Either way, this is exactly what's going on here. Death, war, revenge, and metal. Metal! You know. Alright, let's start fooling around. 2 albums out now. First one in 2023, so 2 years after the initial year of foundation. They have the demos. Check. Just the right order. First you do a few demos, then you start preparing for the full album, then you do it, and a couple of years later you do another one. So, it sounds to me like 1985 never left the building. In a way, that's a good thing, especially when we're talking about some old school stuff. So this is Tyrants of Wrath. Now, obviously people were thinking about, hey, that's pretty much an Emperor thing, after all, Wrath of the Tyrants and all that stuff, but we'll let that slide. What we have here is 11 tracks, almost 50 minutes of music, gone the old school way, done the old school way, and pretty much like the cover says, yeah, let's go back to the 80s or even 90s. You could see a little bit of things going on, there's certain kind of a throwback thing to 80s and 90s role-playing covers, including some black metal covers with the, gargoyles and castles, or even these barbaric warriors. And of course the style here is within is like, fuck you way hard. We'll have the old school logo already from the 80s, and this cover is almost like the 80s. Indeed, never left the building. So what to expect from the music is obviously very much like that. You have the energy and the passion of old school heavy thrash speed metal thing. Not the purest heavy, so let's just remove out of the question, but you get the point, I guess. So sure, you have the kind of a energetic rolling riffs, you have the kind of a vocalist that could be coming from thrash or black thrash and all that stuff. Everything here is kind of a nailing it, except for the quality, I guess, which is there but to limited amounts in a way. Now, there's nothing wrong fundamentally going all this way retro. Everything here reeks of retro, like, hey, we want to sound like this was done 40 years ago, and in a certain degree they kind of do it nicely. But the bottom line is, this ain't no new Metallica, Slayer, or Exodus, or whatever you have in your mind. Or if you're thinking about some power metal albums, maybe the classic ones, no, not really. But they have the style figured out. And when they have this kind of a decent production, which is more nowadays than back in the days, sure, it goes nicely. This is something that I could imagine having a couple of cold beers to go with friends, hanging out, drinking, and then seeing a show. But, to actually challenge the classics, not so much. I mean, the guys are doing it all right, but they don't have the killer songs, which a lot of those nowadays classics do. Whether we're talking about the early Slayer, or Metallica, or Anthrax even, Megadeth, what have you. Yeah, this is not gonna challenge them. But if you're kind of happy with the so-called B-grade material or version of that all, yeah, sure, why not? Like I said, proper stuff to drink your beers with and all that stuff, but just don't expect anything revolutionary and you're good to go. And if you don't believe me, hey, give it a go. You might even like it even more than I do. Links are included in the description box, so what are you waiting for? Kill it!